just introduce, so we have a guest speaker today, Jane Goodall, and she changed the world by letting us have a better understanding of chimps, and
what was that?
Jane, can you introduce your two chimp friends?
Marker.
Of course. This is Mabel, and this is Rose. Okay, go. Oh, this is the wrong thing. Oh, what is that? No, it's not.
There you go.
I need that.
PowerPoint prepared for us. Can you please share it, go through it with us?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Yes.
Yeah. He's excited. I was born on April 3rd in 1934 in London, England. My dad gave me a stuffed chimpanzee when I was about 1 year old, which is right here. My father was an engineer and an auto racer, and my mother was a novelist. Later, my sister Judy would grow up to be a doctor. My childhood difficulties were World War II, and when my dad went to fight in the war, my mother went into a deep depression because we were used to him being the head of the house. I moved to Bournemouth on the south coast of England during World War II, and while we were there, my sister got sick because we weren't used to the salt air. And after World War II, our dad was very, very moody. We thought something might have happened to him when he was fighting. Education. I started elementary school at about age 4. When we moved to the coast, we were homeschooled. After World War II, I went to high school. My parents did not have the money to send me to college, so I took the job as a therapist with animals. I met up with a friend who was working in Kenya, and I jumped at the chance to finally go to Africa. Living in Africa was very exciting for me. I got a job in Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. I met Dr. Lewis Leakey, the curator of the Natural History Museum. He offered me a job as an assistant. We did lots of work on the plains of the Serengeti, looking for fossils of ancient humans. This is a picture of me and Dr. Lewis Leakey. Chimpanzees. Dr. Leakey talked to me about the chimps. He wanted someone to study the chimpanzees. He wanted someone to study the chimps on how they behaved and how early humans might have lived. Someone would have to spend years alone in the forest.
Is he sleeping? Yeah. You can turn him off, Isabel.
I was thrilled to take this job. I had new ideas about what I was seeing. We needed to raise money for my research. We went and asked different groups for support. Finally, the Wilkie Foundation in the U.S. agreed to help. The local people worried about my mother and I, and they taught me about bush lore. Then, the real work started. Watching the chimps. It took months for the chimps to get used to me. I learned that they ate meat and used tools. Not everything was good. Some things disturbed me. A lot of the things that happened that disturbed me were violent territory, and two chimps, a mother and baby, were killing other baby chimps for meat. The chimps displayed human behaviors like hugs, kisses, and playing games, and even tickling each other. They also liked to groom each other. Gombe. Before I went to Gombe, I learned French fluently to communicate with all the researchers on Gombe. Meeting the chimps. This is me, right here, with one of my favorite chimps, Flo. And this is me with another chimp. And then there's another chimp whose name was Penelope. Protecting the chimpanzees. Protecting their habitat and stop the killing of the chimps for meat and fur trade. Identifying the dangers on the chimp's face. Proving conditions for the captivity of chimps in zoos. How I helped change the world. Many thought I could not do a real scientific study because I didn't go to college. I kept my records properly so that others could check it. My reports were more like stories. And I gave chimps names instead of numbers. I needed a new sponsor. The National Geographic Society gave me enough money for another year. After 1975, I began to travel and talk to many groups. Learning from the chimps. I learned that they hug and kiss like humans would. They also surprisingly use tools like twigs and sticks. Foundation. In 1977, I founded the Jane Goodall Institute for Wildlife Research, Education and Conservation. JGI. My other efforts included the Roots and Shoots to involve students from preschool to college. There are over 6,000 Roots and Shoots groups in all 50 states and nearly 90 countries. Explorer. I am commander of the British Empire. The president of Tanzania awarded me with the Kilimanjaro Medal. In 2002, I was named as the United Nations Messenger of Peace. Conclusion. I believe that every person makes a difference every day. In the future, I hope that my research will help new scientists to help the new generation of chimps. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kinds of differences you want to make. Any questions?
What day were you born?
I was born on April 3rd, 1934.
And have you died?
No, I have not died.
I was like, yes, I have died.
Oh, me.
What were some challenges that you faced, like when you were working with the chimpanzees?
A lot of the chimps threw rocks and stones at me when I first got there because they weren't used to, in a nice way, they weren't used to, people with, different, people with, I don't want to be racist, people with different colored skin. They weren't used to me because I looked different than other people.
When you studied the chimps?
I was on the island of Gombe, which is off the coast of Senegal a little bit, but it's like 600 miles, I guess, off the coast of Senegal.
Was there a protest for monkeys, like Diane Fossey did?
Well, I worked with Diane Fossey a little bit when we were doing, when we first met, when I was doing the digging for the ancient human fossils, I met her there and we worked together a little bit on that. Aiden.
What chimp or ape do you think was closest to you?
Well, sort of going back to what Charles Darwin was, we sort of on that scale. So the ape, the different types of apes, mostly what Alex named.
Right now. Okay. So, who was in your family?
My mother, my sister Judy, and we had a little dog who I think's name was Bandit.
What was your family like?
My family was very outgoing. We loved to do things together, and we were all a very close family. And when my father went out into the war, it was very hard for us to adapt to him leaving us.
What obstacles did you overcome in your childhood?
One of the main obstacles was my father going away. It was very heartbreaking for us, and it was very hard for us to adapt to him.
So, who inspired you in your family?
My mother, my grandmother, and my sister. My father didn't really think that it was suitable for a girl to be going out into an unknown country where you never know what can happen.
Who inspired you outside of your family?
Dr. Lewis Leakey was one of the main people who inspired me. A lot of my friends from school inspired me, and my husband also inspired me as well.
What smarts do you think you are?
I think I definitely show nature smart and interpersonal smart. And if there was a one for interpersonal smart with animals, I would definitely choose that. And I also think mathematical smart, because you have to measure, you have to do a lot of mathematics with the chips and stuff.
Do you think you're a true explorer?
I would say that I am an explorer, because I explored the chimps and I gave people a better understanding of the chimps.
What challenges did you face in your work?
Well, a lot of people didn't think that I could do a real report on the chimps, because I hadn't gone to college or received my PhD or my bachelor's degree yet.
How do you plan to take research further?
Well, hopefully that with the roots and shoots, what we're trying to do with that is we're trying to make kids from preschool to college understand animals and try and help them, and hopefully that some of them will try and help the chimps.
What new things did you learn about the chimps?
Well, I learned that they use tools. They make different types of tools, and surprisingly, they make like little almost wrenches and like little mini hammers using tying rocks and string together.
What obstacles did you overcome in your research?
I overcame the fear of the chimps, because a lot of them were very scared, and there's this one big bully chimp called Mojo, and he would throw rocks, sticks. He would. One time I was having lunch, and he jumped on my back, and one of the other researchers had to help me get him off.
Okay, yeah, so that's
Jane, I just wondered if I could make a